Are you looking for inspiring conversations about faith, film, and life? You're in the right place. Here's the host who knows the right questions to ask, Father Edward Looney.
Hey everybody, it's Father Edward coming at you again with another conversation this week. And today I'm revisiting a conversation. No, I'm not using the archive from 4 years ago, but that's the last time our guest was on the podcast. It was back when it was How They Love Mary. Now it's Hey Everybody, it's Father Edward, but you could still find his episode. It's episode number 57. You can find the last episode he did. I'm speaking with John Kraemer, and he is known really for his Lego church building project. And this Lego church has been spotlighted on different platforms. He makes a new one every year. And so that was back in 2020. We had our last conversation. So 3.5 years later, there's more to talk about and just to catch up with an old friend of the show. So thanks so much, John, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me back. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, so the Legos, this is something that you've done a lot with over the years. And I know that there have been a few different other, kind of media things you've done with it. So I remember back when CNA Newsroom was still a podcast, I think it was. That was before JD Flynn went off to start The Pillar and everything. But I think it was like Kate Oliveira, maybe. She did an episode with you talking about your Lego building project. I think you've been spotlighted on Alatea and other platforms, maybe the National Catholic Register.
It's the fact that I've been featured in so many different formats over the years has always been a blessing for me, because it allows me to go into detail about the mission of what I've been doing. And I've also been on Sunrise Morning a couple times with Matt Swain. That is always a fun time. He always loves to have me back on, tries to get me back on every year, and I always get a kick out of it. I always doing the interviews, whether it's through a write up or through these podcasts and other shows. It's fun for me. I love doing it. I love getting to talk about what goes on with my work, the mission behind my work, as well as highlighting issues here and there that come up.
Yeah, and I see too, there was a Catholic World Report article. So a lot of, attention to the Legos. And I guess it helps, people like Katie McGrady. She loves Legos and she puts them together and spotlights them on her social media. I just saw the other day that Legos sent Tea with Tolkien, maybe something revolving around the Lord of the Rings, and wanted her to do an unboxing and all of that. So Legos are pretty popular. I must say I didn't play with Legos. I didn't create things with Legos. I don't have an artistic minded brain in that sense. I have more of an academic and learning brain for writing or whatever. So I was never gifted with drawing or creativity, I guess, in that sense, creativity in words. But what drew you to Legos? How long ago? Obviously, you've been doing this. I think you said maybe 25 years. Is that right? And so
the project itself has existed for 25 years, and that was when I started doing the public displays. Growing up, I had always was always centered around church. We actually lived in the original parish rectory for St. Helens Parish in Saginaw. And so it was like about a half a block away from the church. So we walk up there, and that's what we did. And so my friends are trying to build these elaborate spaceships, and I'm just not good at it. I could build a box and turn it into a church, which I did. And as the years moved on, I kept getting more and more elaborate with the buildings until the point where I started actually showing people what I'm doing, both in person at my first display, and then started when the internet was starting to become more and more popular. There was like a photo hosting site that I was on for a while, and then eventually moved everything to Facebook, which I've had since 2011. And now I've also been getting into the Substack and other social platforms like Twitter and such, where I'm very active on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So with the Legos and everything and sharing it, you've shared it on different media sites, you've shared it with social media. What are people saying?
they love what I'm doing, and there's a lot of surprise in it. I just recently posted on a Facebook group a picture of the inside of the current season 25 project, and everyone was completely surprised. Probably at the level of detail and the number of figures that were inside there. And it's my favorite type of shot where I'm looking in from behind the organ, down all the way down to the tabernacle. And it really gives you kind of a good idea of what's going on. So people are surprised. And then, of course, they get even more surprised when they realize that number one, I'm not good at architecture. I'm not good at math. I'm not trained in this.
Hmm.
And yet here I am building these massive constructs. And I think this current one, the last several years have been around 47 inches long by 25 inches wide to about 25 inches to the tip of the bell towers. And of course, this thing has also got the elaborate lights that run inside. Last few years, I've been doing running two sets of lights, one for the lower half and then one for the upper half, so everyone can see every angle inside. And so people will see the pictures, and then some of them will actually come out to when I'm doing a public display, and they'll have a chance to see this in person, to see the creativity and the passion that goes into it. And then sometimes they'll actually let me get the microphone and actually talk for a few seconds.
Do you document it as you go along? So we're talking, you're building a pretty large, expansive church-like structure. So are you photographing it and such as you make your way through it?
Oh yes, definitely. When I lay down the base plates to start working, that's when I start taking the photos. So everyone follows along. They see when things work right. They see when I change my mind and have to redo something. So they see it all. And in the past, I used to be a little bit embarrassed about that because it's like you don't like to see people see your mistakes. But then I realized that how are they going to learn what goes inside my head if they don't see everything? And I think that during the course of a typical build, I will photograph a couple hundred photos. And they're all on the Facebook page. And it's within the last 10 seasons where I've really started to do more of that, showcasing the history of the design, the process. And I think it gives people kind of a sense of what's going through with my life. What am I praying about? What am I laying down with the bricks? What's going on from family health issues to other stuff going on around me? I think that it is important for people to have a chance to see all the details as they're coming together and seeing where my ideas are flowing from.
And where did the idea for this project come about? Like, how did you decide to start building churches all those years ago?
Well, as I said, the church was our foundation for the family. Every weekend, that's what we did. We were part of the church. We were either attending mass. My dad was a lecturer. I was altar server, and then also part of the choir at one point. And so that's kind of gets ingrained to you that the importance of where you're supposed to be. So for me, it was only a logical step that I actually start taking what I've learned and transferring it to the bricks and showing that passion that I have for the faith. And over the years, it kind of has turned into this disability focused ministry because I've got cerebral palsy, mild form of it. But so I'm showing no matter what challenge you face, God can still use your talents. I'm living proof of that. And I've had to learn to navigate life and overcome different challenges as they come up. And probably just like everyone else, but with the added disabilities, it kind of adds a few extra quirks here and there.
Yeah, do you think when people come upon the church that you've built out of Legos, are they surprised by the amount of detail? Like, because they're probably just expecting the shell of the church, like, oh, that's pretty, but then when they get up closer, like you said, there's an organ, there's a tabernacle. You probably have some saints, you have pews, so they're probably just surprised by all the extra stuff, like no detail is left untouched.
Well, it's kind of funny because when I'm doing, especially when I'm showing the project in public, you're like you said, they come up, they see the outside of it, and then I wave over to them and say, "Hey, you gotta look inside. That's where the real story is at." And then their eyes get wide, and it's always a toss up as to who enjoys it more, the kids or the adults. The kids will see because it's big, it's bright, and then they see all the details inside there. They see the droids that I've got hidden somewhere in there to get their attention, to get them to look into things. The adults, on the other hand, are more reflective. They see the church full, they see something of themselves when they look inside. And that's something that I'm always striving for. I love it when people have a chance to see my work because I enjoy sharing it with them. I want them to see what's going on and the story that I feel being led to tell.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about public displays, and that's how a lot of people come to find your project. What is the public display?
Public display is where I get to visit a parish or some other appropriate event where I will set up and people can have a chance to see my work in person. They can get to look around, look inside, look through the roof. There's all kinds of things that they will notice that the pictures don't always share. Sometimes the location that I'm at will also let me give a presentation where I talk about faith and disability, or I'll do a question and answer session. When I was visiting a parish up in Grand Blanc a couple years ago, there was a YouTube video of me doing that question and answer. And then I'm sure the last couple of years I've been over at Assumption Parish in Midland. That's where I've also been able to do the question and answer with both the adults and kids. They have a chance to find out more about what I'm doing, more of the thought process as to what's going in, both from a technical standpoint and from a disability standpoint. I get asked a lot of fun questions, and I love doing it. I love being able to be out in the public. And so the challenge with the display is that because I don't drive and I don't always have access to extra rides, any parish will have to provide the transportation, and some of them are kind enough to be able to do just that. They'll make the arrangements. They know what they're going to get themselves into. And of course, if they have any questions, I'm set up in a location where they can easily come out and see it in person beforehand. And I've had that happen a couple times where representatives of parishes have come out to talk to me in person, to see the project in person for themselves, and realize that, yeah, this is something that we want. We want him out here. We think he's got an important mission to share. And I'm always looking for parishes that might be interested in hosting me. And yeah, certain accommodations do have to be met, but I don't charge for this. Sometimes I'll put up a donation bin. Sometimes the parish will donate, but that's just to help to offset some of the costs. That's not really why I do this. I do this out of a love of the faith, to share my talents with others.
Yeah, and what are some of the questions? You talked about the question and answer session, get some interesting questions. What are some of the things people have asked in the past?
I think the most, from the building standpoint, how did I build the wall? How did I put the lights in? How did I get the figures in? How many parts does it take? And the one question that the kids will ask that will always make a parent's face turn is, how much did it cost? And usually my answer to that is a lot. The project weighs about 80 pounds, give or take. Both with the combination of Legos and the plywood station that it is mounted to, which allows me to transport it. So, and I've also had kids ask me about the disabilities and stuff here and there. How does it impact me? And how does my faith play a role in that? And I think those questions are important for anyone, kids and adults, to ask, because, and I think with my work, it gives them a place where they feel comfortable asking me some of the more difficult questions that they otherwise may not, that they may be hesitant to do so in public, in a different kind of public setting. And my disabilities are more or less invisible because of the nature you wouldn't know right away that I had a disability until I told you. So it brings that element in as to what are invisible disabilities. Why are those so important? So there's always a lot of doors to conversations, and I love opening those.
So each year you tear down the church structure you've built and you start over?
Yes, and the teardown process can take 2 to 3 days, depending. Uh, the flooring is probably the most brutal because I'm pulling up one by one little round pieces, and those can be hard. Paint scraper and a lot of patience. So it can take a bit. And
You
then
glue these down? Is that no?
no. This is all gravity that keeps everything in place. Uh, Now I have to admit I do use poster putty in a couple spots just to keep a couple things moving during transport. That stuff is wonderful when it comes to trying to keep books in place, sometimes figures in place. I think uh, one year we transported it to All Saints in Bay City, and one of the priests disappeared for a little bit, and he was found. He was found. He was put up by the time I got back down to Bay City to check on the project. He was back in place, but uh, for a moment, I was wondering if I was going to have to replace him at some point.
Wow. So each year the church looks different.
Yeah, I'm always trying to tell a different story, even if it's similar in scope. But I'm always trying to refresh the ideas, and that's what allows me to come back to parishes that I've been to before. Because if I'm coming back to the same place, it's a different building. And people who follow me long enough start to expect that. They're going to start to wonder, what is he going to build next? Is it going to be as elaborate as before? The answer is usually yes to all the questions. And I've had people that have been following me since they were young, and they're still amazed by what I'm doing. Heck, I'm amazed myself most times because it's like, it's kind of hard to believe that I'm actually building these things, and it's not easy. I'm sitting in the living room with bins and containers of Legos scattered all about, and I'm working for a couple hours at a time and just working on different sections, trying to design things out, trying to figure out how I'm going to build something later on and plan for that. I do a lot of sub-assembly where I'll build sections of wall beforehand, set it aside so I don't have to use those parts later. And once again, there's a lot of planning involved, a lot of decisions that have to be made through the course of the design. And it is just so much work, but I love doing it though.
So right now, as you probably are aware, the church is in this time of Eucharistic revival in the United States of America. So how can the Lego project, how could you incorporate the Eucharistic revival into your Lego project?
Well, it's kind of funny because when you look at the project, when you look inside, you see the project about 95% full. The lower floor is always full of figures. And then you look up to the balcony section and you're slowly starting to see more figures being added. I'm currently using a design where I have the main floor and then the balcony kind of goes across in a U shape. You have the main area and then the two side wings. This allows me to do lights underneath as well, but eventually I'd like to see every single seat filled because that's where we're supposed to be. That's giving commitment. And we should make God more of a priority. So if people see that and they see it, especially where I have it set up for the Mass, they realize that that's where we need to be. That's why we are here. A lot of things that I do are on purpose to get people's attention. Or as I've been known to saying, it's also a prayer that more people would take the faith seriously, a prayer that more people would come to the Mass to take part in things. And that's just something I believe in. I long for the days when our churches are full again.
So you're offering prayers, and as you're putting people in, you're praying that churches will be full. So there's like a little petition there. So that's great. You have the tabernacle in the church. Is there a little sanctuary light then? The red
Yeah,
sanctuary light up there?
there's I started doing that a couple of years ago. Found a way to do it.
Oh yeah.
effectively. Found this lantern piece on one of the Bricklink sites, and it just works. So I've got that hanging there, and it's all those little details that people see. I think the tabernacle has been revised a couple times over the last couple years. I think the last major rebuild was for season 25. There's a lot of other minor little things. The ambo gets rebuilt every so often. The organ was probably the most elaborate one I've ever done for this year. That was a complete brand new piece that got built.
Is that the same organ you'll use next year then?
More unlikely I will, although I may make a few adjustments here and there.
Okay.
And what's kind of funny though is that there's also a lot of power chairs that were scratch built by me. I've got a couple service dogs in there. I've got people in wheelchairs.
Oh.
So yeah, I've really
You're communicating the aspect of disability, which is so important to you.
Oh yes, I even have a person in a wheelchair on the balcony. There's a non-working elevator that is in one of the bell towers. So if you were to look through the doors, you'd see it there. Just those minor little things that get the point across. As
Have
you know,
ever depicted Eucharistic adoration?
I had a chapel in a couple of the different projects. This year I didn't go for that because I wanted to do something a little different.
Sure.
But I have had a chapel before, a full chapel, so it's not always out of the question. It's just a question of what is my goal for the year? What am I trying to do? And what parts do I have available?
Yeah. Have you ever done a Christmas one, with Christmas trees and the church decorated for Christmas? Has that been one in 25 years you've done?
Well, originally when I was building them, they originally were for the Christmas season. But because I'm doing displays now more often, earlier and earlier, I kind of have to keep the tone a little bit more neutral, although I do have vestments that I could swap out if I can get to the figures.
Okay.
which is a little bit more of a challenge because you have to figure it's pretty long way to get down there. And if I drop something down there, it's going to be not easy to get out.
25 years ago, you did your first build, 25th year this year. What are the big differences that have happened over those 25 years?
Well, the original first couple projects up until about season 5 were very simplistic. They didn't have the full level of interior design that I'm now known for. Season 5 was the first year that I actually put a lot of effort into doing a more detailed interior. So, with each coming season, subtle changes are usually made, either to the way I'm building the roofs, to the way I'm doing the interior designs, and they've also gotten a lot. They've gotten bigger to the point where I can't go any longer because of space, but they have gotten a little bit taller because of the way that I'm doing the balcony sections. So within that scope, they've kind of changed ideas and shifted the direction of parish design as I've been following things along. The tabernacle is now bigger and right in the center. Last couple of seasons, I've had my famous roof cross, or not roof cross, grand cross above it. I've had for a good number of years, at least since I'm trying to say season 18. I have this giant cross that sits on top of the roof. For a while, that was on the same level as the rest of the roof panels, but now it's on a little bit more of a pedestal. Creates a little interesting challenges in trying to build it to make sure it doesn't bring the entire roof down, but it's actually fairly stable. Once you get Legos interlocked together, you really don't run into a lot of problems with that.
Have you ever tried to replicate a church? So maybe a church in Rome or, a Marian shrine like Our Lady of Lourdes? Or has there ever been replication, or is it just always your creative genius?
It has always been my creative genius, but I'm often inspired by the places that I've been to or places that I've seen. I remember one season, I think season 14 or 15, where the altar layout was similar to what we do at Christ the Good Shepherd here in Saginaw, including the placement of the table, the ambo, and stuff like that. But I really try and do my own design. It's kind of hard to do a minifigure scale replica of an existing church.
Hmm.
With the size constraints that I have, because the workstation is only about 48 by 26 inches. So I don't have a lot of extra space to work with. In order to do a more faithful replica, I would need a more permanent display and a lot more different parts than what I currently have.
I'm guessing you live in an apartment or maybe a duplex or something like that. So is your workstation right there in your house, or do you go somewhere? Do you house this somewhere else? Or yeah, where's that workstation?
My workstation is in my living room of my 1-bedroom apartment.
So when you have visitors over, guests, what do they say as they look at it? They probably know by now.
I was going to say, yeah, they're usually warned that if they come over during a project build, there's a 95% chance that I will sit and talk with them, but they may actually get to see me work on things for a little bit.
And how many months does it take to build?
Season 25 took me under 2 months.
Okay. Has it
Uh,
gotten quicker over the years?
it kind of depends on the layout that I'm trying. How difficult is it being to actually assemble things, and how many orders to Bricklink did I put in for that build? I try and do all my shopping for parts before I start building, because once I get going, I just want to get everything done. But I do factor in a couple delays here and there, like such taking care of business like shopping and stuff. So there are some days where I may not work on it and give myself a little bit of a breather, and then I can come back to things fresh, especially if I've got a design problem that I'm trying to figure out. The season 25 build went by fairly decently. Season 24, the previous season, only took me 30 days, which was, I think, only the second time that I've done one of the bigger churches in that time frame. I think the previous one was season 19, and that's almost about the same size, although a completely different layout.
Yeah. So you've created this season of the Lego project. So like how long will it be available for viewing? So like how many churches are you stopping at? And when do you expect to deconstruct it?
Well, right now on the schedule is I've got 3 displays that are going to happen starting November. I'm looking for additional parishes to fill the gap between now and then. I'm supposed to be at Holy Spirit in Shields with the Knights of Columbus, both for their holiday bazaar and a parish display afterwards. I'm going to be at Assumption Parish in Midland for my 3rd year in a row. And then I'm tentatively going to be at Christ the Good Shepherd Parish starting around Advent for my 21st year of doing that display.
So what does the pastor of, the parish that brought you back for 3 years, or the pastor of your home parish, what do they say when you ask, hey, can I do this again?
Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because we just changed pastors at Christ the Good Shepherd. It's always a challenge when you bring the idea up to let them know that this is what I do every year. Some priests do not know about the history of my work. I have been thankful, though, that the priests that have been coming in since the first displays I started to do now understand that there's a history with the church with that. They know how I set things up. Our current priest, Father Christopher, has actually seen my work before. So he's said mass at our parish a couple times for different reasons when I've had the project out. So he knows that it's there. So it's not unfamiliar to him. So I don't have to do a lot of persuading. But they're usually pretty good about it. Our previous priest, Father Bill, was a big supporter of my work, loved what I was doing with it, and loved the mission behind it, which I think is definitely important. And I've really been blessed with the support that I do have. For the Assumption Parish display, the director of parish life is my contact, and he's the one that coordinates all those stuff. So it kind of depends on which parish that I'm visiting. One of my favorite places that I've been to is All Saints in Bay City with Father Jose. He is an amazing priest out there. He does a lot of good for the parish, has a lot of history with the Bible, and it's just so much fun, and he loves it when I come out. I usually come out there every other year or so. just so people can see it. And it's just always a wonderful time. I love being able to get out, and I'm always praying for new opportunities to do so, because this is not meant to be hidden in my apartment complex. This is meant to be shared with everyone.
And it's not meant just to be seen as a photo on Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah,
It's meant to be seen in person. That's probably, breathtaking as someone takes a look at it for sure. So, well, what a marvelous project. You know, just the fact that you're taking something that all of us are very familiar with, Lego, something from our childhood, and you're still using them, and you're able to build them brick by brick, and you're building something beautiful for God. And yeah, great project. So, if people want to learn more about you or the Lego project, where would you refer them?
you can find me on Substack at Praying at the Bricks. And of course, you can find me on Facebook under Lego Church Project. And you can also search for me on Twitter under the same name, Lego Church Project. There you'll find a lot of interesting things. I do a weekly article that I share on Catholicism Rocks now, usually related to faith, disability. I think the last blog article I wrote was on transportation, particularly to extra events within the diocese. Transportation is one of the big issues with me because, as I said, I don't drive. I'm lucky enough if I can get to Mass and to the store. I don't have a lot of room for extras, unfortunately, but and if any parishes are in the area, Saginaw Diocese or Lehman-Lansing Diocese, if you guys are interested in learning more about my work, please reach out. I'm more than happy to come out. I'm more than happy to talk with you about what I'm doing and the mission behind my work. People see the bricks, but they may not always realize that there's a deeper story with the bricks.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so you've helped to share some of that story today. And thanks so much, John, for sharing your story, coming on the podcast, and letting people know about these projects and how they can find them online. So thanks so much, John.
Thank you for having me again. I greatly appreciate it.
If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. And don't forget to stay up to date with what Father Edward is doing by following him on Facebook, X, or Instagram at the handle @FrEdwardLooney. Thanks for listening, and please join Father Edward again next time for another inspiring conversation.